Hi, everyone, and welcome to the last session in the advanced stream. We are pleased to welcome Sam Chiu, who will be presenting Canada's Sea Force in Hong Kong, 1941 to 1945. Dr. Sam Chiu, PhD, is the editor of the Journal of Chinese Philately of the China Philatelic Society of London. He is the immediate past president of the Royal Philatelic Society of Canada. As an avid exhibitor, his exhibits have received 41 large gold and 50 gold medals in national and international competitions. He is the only Canadian to receive the American Association of Philatelic Exhibitors Sapphire Award and one of 3 Canadians to receive the AAPE Diamond Award. 7 of his exhibits have received a total of 14 APS Research Awards. His exhibits have won at least a gold medal in 9 different classes in national competitions. He is a FIP accredited juror in postal history, postal stationery, traditional, and postcard classes. Recently, he served as jury vice president at the FIP show EFIRO or EFIRO 2024 in Bucharest, Romania. He is also a bureau member of FIP's PS Commission, where he had prepared and then presented training material on treatment for the qualifying seminars for accreditation to judging in this class at FIP shows. He is a fellow of the RPSC, RPSL, and a jury fellow at FIP. He received his PhD in international management at the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland. Sam, we are very pleased and looking forward to hearing your presentation. So without further ado, please take it away.
Thank you. Some of you have already heard my other presentations. This is a completely new one because I found that presenting this in a timeline approach is more efficient. And soon I'll be rewriting my exhibit this way. And by coincidence, 2 days from now is Remembrance Day. So it's a good time to remember what happened 83 years ago in Hong Kong. So just as a disclaimer, I do not have the best collection of Sea Force material, and I do not have the best knowledge. I strongly believe Ron McGuire is the one that you should look for because he knows a lot in this, much, much more than I do. So Hong Kong sent 2 battalions of 1975 soldiers and 2 nurses to Hong Kong. And they were the Winnipeg Grenadiers and the Royal Rifles of Canada. And there's a 3rd and small branch which contains the Royal Signals, the clergies, of course, medical, and so on. So because of time, I'm not going to go into why, how this happened. But just to quote, what you see on the screen about authors writing about Sea Force, they call it a strategy. They call it a tragedy. So it's a tragedy, and I'm not going to drill into this, and you could read anywhere about their opinions. So on December 1st, 1941, after the Sea Force have arrived in Hong Kong, there was actually a determination that they want to send more to fill a whole infantry brigade. Fortunately, that did not happen because then the tragedy would be even worse. So this is the timeline approach that I know I have. And I tried to put an item at least very close to the date, if not the exact date. So as you can see, a lot of activity happening in 1941 when they got there. And of course, the capitulation of Hong Kong, December 25th, and that put everybody in POW camps. Then the Japanese, in 4 different shipments, sent around 1,500 of the POW to Japan as slave laborers, and of course the the liberation of the POWs after the war. I'm not going to have time to spend on all of it, so I'm just going to run through the slides. There was two ships, the HMCS Prince Robert and the Awati, that brought the whole delegation there. There is other ships that brought the heavy armory and so on. It never got to Hong Kong. So just to tell you that if you were a family member and you were trying to write the C-Force member, you could have sent the letter before they left Canada, and it would never have reached them. Gray has, Gray is here. Gray has another cover. I have one. This is my cover, and it shows that by October 31st, uh, even covers of by October the 31st couldn't make it to Hong Kong. Meanwhile, the fighting didn't start until December the 8th. And on the back, we could see that they were still returning this letter in 1942, April the 7th. So, after seeing this, the three covers of the Brickley Correspondent, I'm pretty sure, I'm very confident to say, none of the C-Force members have ever received mail from their family in Canada. So for every cover, I usually refer to the writer or the censors, and I usually quote uh, their their ranks and so on. And the day of death, of course, this was 1994, so he passed away at a pretty old age. On the way, it stopped in two different places. The first was in Hawaii. So this was November the 2nd, and this is the chop from the cancel from the Royal Rifle of Canada's orderly room. So this was sent in Hawaii, and this was probably put through the military mail in in Hawaii and to return. So it got back from November 2nd. It took 15 days to come back to Windsor, Quebec. Now the sender was Mirror, and the censor is McDougall. So I was able to track all the information that they have, and I would just run through this. So this is a relatively new find and a shocking find because after they stopped November 2nd in Hawaii, they stopped November 15 in Manila, just overnight before they reached Hong Kong the next day. Now, this particular cover was sent again using this is a C-Force orderly room on the ship. And this November 15 is the day when they are in Manila. However, this cover was never sent until November 27th. So of the transportation mode, it was number one, it was not sent in Manila via the US. It was not sent on arrival in November 16. And HMC Prince Robert left Hong Kong November 19th. It took 92 pounds of mail. This wasn't on it. So I figure that this particular since he's a captain, and he deliberately put two big labels in there, airmail. So what happened was probably it was held back until in Hong Kong that they were able to send this in airmail. Fortunately, this was sent on November 27 because the last flight of the Clipper left on November 30th. Otherwise, this couple would have been detained. So this was Billings who sent the cover. So once they got into Hong Kong November 16th, I was able to get hold of the photos, and this is the march from the ferry terminal to camp, which should be Symposium camp. I have to apologize because my allergies is acting up again. Well, every day. So, uh, again, from studying the, the postal history, there is only 10 days that the Sea Force member were able to send mail, and it was from November 20th. They landed in Hong Kong November 16th. They Sea Force started their mail November 20th. It was described in Clark. And then on the November 29th, we just saw the last cover by airmail, which have to leave Hong Kong by November 30th. By November 29th as well, it was the last ships. I can say ships because we traced at least one ship that was taking mail eastbound to Canada. Again, the sender, which is Harrison, Private Callis and Harrison. Now, Callis unfortunately was killed in the first days of action. So this is last November, when I went back to Saiwan camp. I bought this cover and then do what the next generation of philatelists are doing, which is extreme philately. That means bringing the item and using the background. So the background is his name on the column. So this is another member that they could never retrieve their body or identify the body. So it's kill in action. And we will see uh, Lieutenant Corrigan again and again as a censor. So I was lucky enough to get a collection of family newspaper plus one letter, no covers. And in there is this, he is actually a drummer. And his family kept clippings from the Winnipeg, any of the Winnipeg papers. And in here, it very specifically said there is no parcel post as yet. So, but this is actually in conflict with what the contemporary knowledge is. So I was able to, this type of newspaper is very useful for me because this is in display class or FIP called open philately. So I could freely use the newspaper, which sets the tone of the exhibit. So with it is also the Winnipeg Grenadier. This is their book that and in here the family actually underline the drummer's name. So this is C.E. Smith. Again, I brought his letter back, to the column. Again, he was missing in action. So, his body was never found. Unfortunately, his name is way up in the column. So I cannot, put it near the background. So by airmail, this one, on the 27th again is similar to the one I did, the Hawaii cover, Transit Hawaii cover. And it has the three types of inverted triangle. Those are a British censor marking that were assigned to just the Canadian. Again, the sender, again, we see Lieutenant Corrigan as the censor. So for the Royal Rifles of Canada, number 136 was assigned to them. 137 was assigned to the Winnipeg Grenadiers. And by sheer coincidence, I'm the only one who have one stripe of this in the vermilion ink. 138 was assigned to a headquarter company. Usually the 137 comes in this violet or even black. So this is the only known 137 stripe in vermilion. And this again was sent November 25th. So it made the 29th deadline and it came by service back to Saskatchewan. So again, this is the writer and this is the censor. So this is a recent find. And I was lucky to get it because it's 138, which before this I did never own. 138 is, of course, the one assigned to the headquarters. Unfortunately, the sender I could only trace to a teacher in the Edmonton Technical School. So I do not, at that point in time, for some reason, there is no, the sender did not have to put his name on the back of the cover. So this is a really special one too. So this is the best item I've ever owned. This is the cover from the Brigadier Lawson. Now Brigadier Lawson, of course, is the highest commander. He's the commander in chief. And last year when I was making a presentation. I already bought the cover, but it wasn't in my hands yet. So I was biting my tongue. Again, when I went back uh, to Hong Kong, I brought it back to his grave. And this is the extreme philately part. So, and those are the metals. This was November 24th of last year, I believe. So 82 year after the cover was sent, thereabouts, I brought it back to his grave. So now there are the small delegation of HQ staff, and they were sometime posted in 120, which is a China Command HQ, or Bowen Row British Military Hospital. That's why there exists other inverted triangles of C-Force members that are 113 and 120. And I believe Gray has one that is 114, which is our AOC in Queens Row. So this is one of two known in 114. Those are really rare. Congratulations, Gray. This really rare item that you own. So, unfortunately, I don't have a C-Force item to show you on December the 8th. And that is when the Japanese at 8 a.m. in the morning start bombing Hong Kong. And the long story was the Clipper, who was supposed to fly November 30th, the next week schedule would have been December the 6th. But bad weather stopped that. So on December the 8th, while it was still at its moorings, the Japanese bombed it. And you could see the leftover, of what is the Hong Kong Clipper 2. Hong Kong Clipper 2 was just bringing mail from Hong Kong to Manila and Manila back. So, and that would be hand off to another Clipper that would fly it to San Francisco. So I do own other items on December the 8th, but not C-Force. Both of them were at 7:30. That means this was 30 minutes before the start of war. One is from Kowloon, and this is a pretty scarce item because it was held back, and actually it has a strike of the Japanese Kowloon office after the war. After the war, this was in February the 17th. So if you could read this elsewhere, but essentially there was a three-prong attack to from China over the border to Hong Kong. I'm always scratching my head why they named this front the Gene Drinkers Line, because it fell in very short time. And within 3 days, what is the whole of Kowloon and is all overrun by the Japanese. So only after December 12th, 11th, the Winnipeg Grenadiers and the Royal Rifle was stuck in Hong Kong Island. So this is one of the major battle areas that the Winnipeg Grenadiers were. I was able to find this and trace where everything is, because this is where on the evening of December 18th and 19th, that is, the Japanese have had enough. So they started the attack on Hong Kong Island. So overnight, they slip into Hong Kong, and in the morning they start to conquer. Now, as we can see, half of it were the Winnipeg Grenadiers and half of the Royal Rifles. So, but the big thing is, all those were trying to cut Hong Kong into half. And this is where the Wang Ai Chung Gap is where most the fierce fighting were going on. Now, this is Happy Valley, and the Wang Ai Chung Gap is right overlooking it. And a year after the war have ended, the Japanese used this drawing, which is a storming of Wang Ai Chung Gap. This is where the Winnipeg Grenadier was holding ground. Now, this particular cover on December 25th, 1941, this was backdated. Somebody created this. It even have a variety on the, on the basic stand. So this was created after the war, but Hong Kong capitulated at noon on December 25th. So I call this a timeline cover. I'm just going to use it because of the timeline. So after that, we realized that a lot of the mail were trapped because we said the last flight was November 30th, and the last ship was November 29th. What happened between then to the mail of the Sea Force, and they were stuck in Hong Kong. They were stuck in Hong Kong, and after the so-called 3 year and 8 month, they created after the surrender of the Japanese, 7 bags of mail were found, and they put this marking, which is detained in Hong Kong. Now, this I kind of coined it to be a detained cover. So detained cover refers to anything that has this in there. So this was sent in 7th of December, 41, and it got into Manitoba October 6, 1945. So this is the sender, and Lieutenant Young was the censor, which unfortunately, yeah, he was killed. And so again, I went back, bringing the cover to his grave side. Another one, me and my friend own a pair of this. This is a major. So on the same day, 7th of December, of course, it didn't make it. So this is, yeah, the major bread. Now, I was lucky enough because when I make presentation like this, other philatelists offer me material that they have. And this is a correspondent of which the Lester correspondent is just letter that Lester's father received and kept. So on January 7, 42, we see the the Royal Rifles writing him a letter. Unfortunately, the letter is not there. The content, we could guess that it was something have to do with uh, capitulation of Hong Kong. We don't know what the situation your son is in. Some kind of a first communique from the Royal Rifles of Canada, and this is Lester. Now this is an archive item and from TED. By April 15, this is a form letter sent to the family in which the Department of Defense is saying that from now on, we are able to receive the letters from you. Now, I've shown you from the Brickley correspondent that as late as April 7th, they were still returning letters. But fortunately, by April 15, the Department of Defense have got their act together and sent this to the family. So that's the first notification of mail. Sorry. Now, this this is the letter was dated April 21st from family. So we saw that April 15 was the date that Department of Defense was sending to the family. So probably December 16th, this was sent, and at Winnipeg, it probably got there April 21st, and this was from the mother of Peterson. Peterson is actually a pair of twins. This is George. I have an item from George, and I have the other item from Morris. So, of course, as mother of twins, once you get that hold of that letter, you want to try to write to them. So, this is what I think. April 21st is the earliest I have record of letters 42 written by family to C-Force members. So this is George, and of course you see George with his father and Morris as well. So he lived a long age. He only passed away in 2021. So let's see what others talk about receiving letter. So their letters were not given to them, and from what their description was, the Japanese tried to demoralize the Canadians. They burned their mail in front of them. They let the mail sit in rain for several months before it was given to them. The so-called apostles, I really doubt if anything got into the hands of the C-Force members. So come 1942, there was an exchange of prisoners between Japan and the rest of the world, and it's the first voyage of the Grisham. In there, it took a lot of parcels and mail for exchange. So we know that sometime in August or so, there is items that was received from Hong Kong. There's very few items of this that were received because we would see why in a little while. So at a certain point in the campaign, actually the POW were given covers, not just cards, but covers. I suspect that it is more because of the covers may not have been sealed and then it resealed and so on and so forth. But um, but then I think there are very, very few covers left because later in the war, I don't think the Japanese want the covers anymore. They just want it to be much easier to be censored so they could really read the cards. So there is the whole line of development. So only in 1942, May and June, a portion of the POW were given one cards. Some of the cards got through in the Grisham exchange. And in July, there was given a quarter of the POW was a second mailing. The whole fact is, unfortunately, a lot of the mail that were received, either the family have no marking on the back that we do not know the exact dates. So this is the sender of the last item. So let's go to camp. At first, all the Canadian was put into North Point camp, and then in September of 1942, they closed the camps, and everybody was sent to Camp S, which is the Bowen Row camp. Now, fortunately, I own a correspondence of 6 items from Dowling. And Dowling was good enough to put down his dates. So this was sent May the 1st. We saw April 15 was the Department of Defense notifying the family. So the family sent this on May the 1st to Dowling. Look at the record. It took over a year, June 43. I I strongly believe that no mail will receive in the camps until sometime in 1943. So this is Dowling, and his whereabouts was not known, and the fact that some of his mail have been marked at Bowen Row or BHBR or BHR means at some point in time he was in the hospital. He was in the hospital, maybe not just as a patient, but I think he also helped out as a medical staff there. So this particular one, this was sent to an officer. The officers were kept away from Camp S, Sumsuibo camp. They were put in Argyle camp, which is Camp N. So when this came in, whoever directed saw that there was an officer and put N in there. However, this particular officer were actually put with the gang in Sumsuibo. So this is the uh, Private Benton is another correspondent that I have. I was really lucky to get this because in here, besides he have a dozen photos, he have 4 written casualty lists in Hong Kong. So this is an officer. This is the story of uh, Major John Crawford was that he was forced to make an announcement on shortwave radio about how good the conditions are in the POW camps. And this is where you see the Japanese were double censoring him. I have seen very few of the double censoring. The lieutenants were not double censored. The major were. So his broadcast was sent sometime in 1943 by Radio Tokyo. And in Western US, there was a dozen people or so that heard about this and eventually wrote his wife about that. And he passed away. He got an MBE after he came back, and he passed away in 1997. So this is where the drawing after the fact of the Samsoibo so-called sick bay, or and there's even a poem of this. So just to show you, there's different types of the POW cards that the Japanese made. I'm not going to delve into much detail. Now, this brings to a point that there is actually scribes in POW camps. There's several reasons why there are scribes. When the person POW was too sick to write, when his writing is too ugly, or he just wants somebody to write it. So Benton, this is his own writing. I was able, and this is the writing from a scribe. I have other POW's mail that is written by the same scribe. Very nice. Look at the prints. But with Benton, this is with Dalton. This is really with Benton. This is really easy to tell because look at the way he writes the L, the double wiggles. So we could, from the POW mail, we could see who the censors are, and those are the ones that I have recorded as so far on my mail. So, so this is later in October 42, and this is to Lester's father again, and it says after the first exchange in June to August on the Grisham came back. And they were thinking that there was yet another exchange, but it did not happen for another year. So, and this particular one stay mailed forward via Russia. Unfortunately, after I've been collecting so long, I have not seen any items that were, sent. There any evidence that was sent via Russia. So this is to another particular person because I use this. I don't own the cover. Now the Japanese start to send the healthy POW to Japan to work as slave labor. So this particular person was sent on the first shipment, and this is the writer. Sorry, this was a letter, yeah, that he wrote from the Japan camp back to his family, and this was his writer. I don't own the cover. Now, this is the the second one that there's a couple of strong points with this one. You could see it's March 20th, 1943. I believe this is the earliest record of a cover received in a Hong Kong camp. And there are other evidence because of this. The description that the mail of the Grisham was actually put in the rain. Look at the condition, how bad this is. This, in the rain, so that it was given to the, after several months. And the other fact is that this is a generic censor marking. My studies show the generic censor marking was put on very early, when the first mail was received from Canada. So this was Rutherford, who was the receiver of the cover. Now, there was another, this is the first shipment this referred to the first shipment, again from Lester's father. So his son by now has been transferred to Japan. So they don't know how, they don't know when, but this is a letter telling his father. So this is from the Hong Kong Red Cross to Geneva. It is similar covers that the Hong Kong Red Cross would send those POW lists and any news to Geneva before it was forwarded to Japan, the Red Cross in Japan. So August 15, they were shipped. This was another shipment. This time it was only 376, and this particular one. Take a look at the later style, the censor marking. This actually is a Hong Kong POW camp. So at a later stage, the censor marking, the Japanese were using better censor marking. So, and this was Philot who was receiving the letter. Now, the second batch of the letter in the Grisham, again, this is from Tate, who told us that, after the first exchange of letter, 962 letters were all from the Grisham exchange. And, so this is the letter of the second exchange. And this is a photo of the second exchange in Goa in September 1943. We see the ship, the Grissom here, and we see the Japanese Tia Maru. This is the exchange where not just there's no POWs in there. Usually it's Japanese civilians, and the two nurses were sent there. I had the luck of buying this particular photo, and this is Tia Maru, and that is the Grisham, of which you could see they were fishing in there. So this was the ship that sent back the two nurses. The two nurses that went with Seaforth, they were shipped back in this shipment, and then they came back into Canada. So lots of word. I'm not going to drill into much more detail, and let's go to another correspondent. So this is, in my experience, that there is less than 5 examples where the specific direction of to send by Grisham on Seaforth mail, because I've only seen 2. I guess there would be more, but I doubt it would be less than 10. So another letter This is from McKnight, and he was shipped. He was shipped with the 98. The shipment was only 98 people with the Honyama Maru, and they transit all the ships, all 4 shipmen transit in Formosa. And this is McKnight, and this is Matchett. So this would be the last shipment of the 4. So out of 1184 POWs that were in Hong Kong, minus 1,500 were shipped to work in Japan, of which 135 did not make it. So this is Machat in his later years. So as a matter of fact, I usually don't collect POW in Japan, but unfortunately, that would limit my knowledge of the POW camps and their. So I start to collect POW camps, and this is where all the known C-Force member were. I have highlighted those because those are the ones that I own covers from. And this is the one where it actually says Japanese POW censor in there. You saw the other part of the cover. I had to use 2 different parts of it for 2 different purposes. So this is the Oyami camp, where that's the directional marking, and this is sent to Denzhou. I have no idea why he put a English address in there. Probably kept the letter, and this was another POW that he had met, and he probably used that to record the address after the war is over. They could then correspond. So this is Dazzle. Another one is MacArthur, and this is the Narumi camp. So this is MacArthur in his later years. So this is a strange one where it actually have the the the, the date in Showa years, which is the Japanese year, which pinpoint the receiving date. And it has Camp 5B in there, which show us that it was in Hiroshima. I have not seen another one. I've not seen any other one that actually have a Japanese data in. So this is, Gain Chu, who was the writer. Now this is Machet, and this is a so-called this is a strange one because forever I cannot decipher exactly what date it was that stamp was from this New Brunswick. The stamp were removed because POW material you actually don't need the stamp. I have no idea why this was removed, and it was somehow.
Would you like an explanation of why the stamp
Yes,
was
yes,
removed?
Gray. Please help.
The reason was it had a picture of the king, and that was removed by Japanese censors.
Okay. Thank you. So that was the censor that peeled that off. Thank you. Now I know. I could fill that in. So, as you can see, Gray has been helping me with solving all the other issues. So, really appreciate Gray's help. So this is another one, Captain Hook. This is much earlier. I did not include anything that was when Force C was yet to be Force C, it were Y Force, but Captain Hook. Captain Hook, unfortunately, have the distinction that he was the last POW to die in Hong Kong during captivity. So this was me again 82 years ago, 82 years after the fact. Well, this is probably 83, bringing his cover back. So both the censor and the person who wrote it, which was Major Grisham, both of them were, Major Grisham was KIA because they can't identify his body. Again, his name is but a name on the column. But Major Hook was able to be identified and buried at Saiwan Hospital. So one of the best item that I have is this handwritten casualty list. And in there, it just tells us when, all the officers and the soldiers and so on. So this spread into like 4 different pages. And at the start of it, it was pretty well organized. The numbers were in there, their rank was in there, and even, their initials are in there. But when it got later, we could see that it was, the missing and so on. I C.E. Smith, Callis, all those, I brought back the items to Hong Kong. And then on the last one, they die after December 21st. So by now there is, some of them have no initials, they don't have their numbers. And, Major Hook was the last entry of this. So the Japan's surrender on August 15, 16. So on August 18th, and this is from Dowling. He was smart enough that when this was dropped from U.S. planes onto Sumsui Boat Camp, and he penciled in the mark at 4 p.m. on August 5th, 18, 1945, they got hold of this. Now for the LPW aerogram. The LPW aerograms, I haven't recorded more than 20. As a matter of fact, I probably have only images for a dozen. And every one of their routing is very different. This one is to the other twin, Peterson. We saw George Peterson's photo. This is to, the other son, Morris Peterson. Now, the sender did not write the address in there. So this was returned later. And we could probably understand why, because the transit mark in Victoria is October 18th. The POW start arriving in Victoria, October 12th. So I guess they were thinking it's easier to just send it back to the family, which they don't even have an address. So they found an address for him and sent it back to the family. So this is the Peterson camp, the Peterson twin, and this was in August 28th. So they look healthy. By then they look healthy. They will leave. So this is another LPW cover that it was directed to Manila via, Melbourne. And Gray and Eugene have think that this actually never got to Manila. It probably was sent back. It never got there. So this is another LPW cover. Again, this was probably didn't go through overseas, and it were probably sent back. So I also own, when the POW arrived at the Winnipeg train station, there was a committee that welcomed them. There was a pack that welcomed them, and this was in one of the greeting cards. This is one of 3 different forms that we have recorded. So it's just like a fairy tale, right? Everything looks great and is rosy afterwards. No, not. So if you think I'm kidding, read this book, The Three Wars of C4s, in battle, in POW camp, and when they come back, it's the Canadian federal government. So, okay. I don't want to leave you with this sense of, everything is down. So it comes a full circle. I just found this in the last year. After 80 something years, we now found one that was actually given to the POW, the Japanese POW. Coming full circle, now the Japanese were POWs. And in there, they can write anything. They just could select what they could write that applied to them and cross it out. So after 20,000, you imagine that there was 20,000 Japanese POW, and it took 80 somewhat years for this to serve us. So I think the Japanese took it as an insult that they were POWs. So I think a lot of this were destroyed. And that's why, this is the only one I've seen. And this will win the POW, the World Cup, which is the Hong Kong Study Circle Discovery Competition for this year. So, of course, I need to thank Gray. I mean, he's constantly helping me. So without him, his guidance all this year, I would not be able to get where I am. And he's already helping me today. So I could correct another mistake. Now I could attach a reason. Thanks, Gray. And my buddy in England, which I just saw a couple of weeks ago when I was in London, Richard Whittington, who did the survey for all the inverted triangle British markings. So just to show you that the images, the letters, I mean, they're all mine. The cap badges, I own some of them. And the other images, I either take from the Hong Kong Veterans Commemorative Association website, and some of them were from the commemorative book that I own. So those are my reference. So just to thank you for joining me, I had the pleasure of meeting Sergeant McDonald 2016. He has the distinction of the second last living Seaforth member. He passed away last year, I think, at 101. So I was able to at least talk to him, get him to autograph his book for me, and so on. So unfortunately, this year, the 1975, the last member of Seaforth passed away as well. Thank you. So just to leave you with the timeline. Thank you. Thanks, Lisa.
Sam,
What time is it? What time is it? Sorry.
We are at 4:53.
Okay.
You snuck in an extra 3 minutes.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to stop your screen share, and then we can see everybody. All right.
Hi, Karen.
Well, thank you, Sam. Everyone, if
Hi,
you have
Robin.
questions, I encourage you to direct them to Sam by email or other communications. We're going to wrap up our session for now. But I would like to thank you, Sam, for sharing your new and reworked presentation with us. And also thank you, Gray, for your little addition as well. Thank you, everyone, for participating in the Royal Philatelic Society of Canada and the Postal History Society of Canada's first ever joint symposium. Please do visit our websites, rpsc.org and postalhistorycanada.net to learn more about the RPSC and PHSC, and you can share your feedback and thoughts on your experience with us today. Maybe you loved it and you want to see this happen again, or maybe you didn't love it and we'll let you decide what to say. So thank you, everyone, for coming out, and have a good weekend.
Hi, Mike.